In at 10, Burntrap. Is Burntrap dead or alive? That's actually a good question in this case, since I don't know if Afton is alive inside the Burntrap suit or not. He was alive in the Springtrap and Scraptrap suits, as we learned from the man in room 1280, because he was possessed by the one you should not have killed. But did he finally get put down after the FNAF 6 fire, or is he still kicking? His body is still present inside the Burntrap suit, or at least it partially is. So like, what's the consensus here? I don't know. The existence of Glitchtrap seems to imply that he's dead in the suit, but Ultimate Custom Night suggests that the one you should not have killed is still possessing him, which would be what he sees in the recharge station, which would mean that he's still alive, not because of the recharge station, but because the one you should not have killed would still be possessing him, which they would only do if he was still alive. Since, if we're being honest, the only reason Afton is possessed is so that he can't suffer, so being possessed after he's dead isn't really gonna do anything. And the one you should not have killed would not be controlling Burntrap to take over Freddy and turn things evil. It goes against what we know about the character. So, what's the deal here? I don't know. In at 9, relationship. Gregory, our player character in the game, is certainly a mysterious kid, and Vanessa, the night security guard who's also Vanny, is just as confusing, but at least we know more about her story, being our player character from FNAF VR. But what the most mysterious thing about this game is the relationship between Gregory and Vanessa. Like, what the absolute living hell is up with these two? Vanessa spends the whole game trying to lock Gregory in the security room, and then Vanny, her other personality, comes to try to kill us, and she actually ends up doing it in the worst ending. But then, after curing her in the Princess Quest ending, we don't even ask questions. We just go and get ice cream with her on a hill. Like, what? MatPat seems to have solved this one though, saying that Gregory is following Vanessa in order to make sure that nobody gets too close to the truth about Glitchtrap possessing her, but then he also admits that there are some holes to this theory. But if I'm honest, this is the first time I've agreed with MatPat in a while. He was mostly talking about like smaller things, such as endoskeletons or the main character of Princess Quest, and those I didn't agree with, but this is a good explanation as to why Gregory is protective over Vanessa. It also explains why he's such a criminal. He's just a bad robot person. And it ain't Glitchtrap. Honestly, again, I'm still confused as to how Glitchtrap and Burntrap could exist at the same time. Like, yes, we've seen people pour their agony into things while remaining alive before. Henry and the Ella doll from the novels and Fazbear Frights, for instance. However, nothing like that has seemed to happen in the games. And as many of you are adamant to make clear, the games and books are in different universes. But still going by my rules of they help clarify things that are possible in the other universe, William was seemingly not in enough agony to pass it on to something like a hard drive that would then get scanned unless he died, since the one you should not have killed was holding onto his soul. And unless some sicko ended up moving his body to a new animatronic endo after it was destroyed, there should be no way that this guy should still be able to be kicking, and yet also have a sentient code version of himself running around in Vanny's head. Okay, given the rules that have been established in this universe, that's seemingly impossible. I mean, I'll look into it more and maybe have a theory about it tomorrow, but I don't know. And at 7, Arcade Conspiracy. The Arcade Conspiracy gets its name from one of the duffel bags that you can find where we learn that something else seems to be going on in the Pizzaplex. Of course, because you know, it can't just be one story. Quote from the Arcade Conspiracy: note, exit interview. They are working together, the arcades. They are hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time. Then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I am so close. Just one more night, please. I can save the princess. Now, it's clear that this seems to be referring to the Princess Quest games. However, it doesn't seem like we have to glitch those in order to win them. We just need to beat them in order from 1 to 3, and then boom, we save Vanny. So what could this actually mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches as well. The Balloon Boy World game that you can find in the theater, the Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which won't turn off even when unplugged, that you're supposed to be able to find in the bakery, and the Monty Golf A Arcade that, according to its duffel bag, shouldn't be in the mini golf area, but is. However, while you can play both Balloon Boy World and Monty's golf game, which I got a 14 as my lowest or technically highest score, when the best you can do is 13, so. Chica's Feeding Frenzy isn't an arcade cabinet. It's not in the game yet. You can only access it using a mod that lets you cheat it in from the main menu. So I feel like this was an intentional feature that was left on the cutting room floor, but it's still a mystery. And at 6, what's next? One of the biggest mysteries from this game, and any FNAF game really, is what comes next. But with this game more so than any other FNAF game, because well, anything can happen now. We can go anywhere and do anything. I think more will be revealed with the new Fazbear Frights series when it gets started, called Tales from the Pizzaplex, but until the first one releases on July 19th, we got nothing. The Blob could be the next major villain, or Vanny could be, and hell, even after MatPat pointed out what could really be going on now, even Gregory could be the next major villain. Like, I always knew the kid was evil, but still, oh well. We can move on to a new location, we can go back to an old one, or we can see the aftermath of the Pizzaplex cave-in under Roxy's Raceway. We can go back to the normal FNAF formula, or maybe move on to more story-based games like this one. The series can go literally anywhere, especially with someone new taking over. But I felt that it was cheaty to put this at number 1, so I'm gonna put it at number 6. Halfway through into number 5, Client 46. Some believe Gregory to be the mysterious Client 46, able to be found in the retro CDs available at the end of the game using Roxy's eyes. However, others suggest that perhaps this Client 46 is Vanny, since Vanny is an alternate persona of Vanessa, and Vanessa is the only other client with retro CDs in the game. Client 46 doesn't talk, but is adept at hacking, something that at least before the game came out we associated with Vanny. But if Gregory is a robot, the hacking thing is easily explained away. And Vanessa is asked about her making a costume, whereas Client 46 is seen talking with someone in a bunny costume, or at the very least the costume itself, but the cameras when they are talking are glitching out, indicating that the bunny is Vanny, so it would be Vanessa inside the suit. There's also the fact that Vanessa leaves therapy in disc 12 or so, and then Client 46 doesn't leave until disc 16. I still think it's Gregory, but hey, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, right? Unless they share it in a YouTube video apparently, according to the comments. And at 4, Vanessa. Now we know that Vanessa is working the security guard job because William needed her at the Pizzaplex in a position of power. But she doesn't seem to know about this, and who is this higher up that needed her at the job so badly? Well, considering that Gregory is an excellent hacker and seemingly a robot as well, MatPat is under the impression that it was him who recommended her. But then again, how did she get the job when so many people didn't want her to have it? The hiring manager for the Pizzaplex commented on her lack of experience and how she didn't seem like she was up for the job, but then she gets it anyway? Like, does that mean that this employee was killed, or did someone just pull rank? And if they did pull rank, does that mean that it was actually someone at the company who's still working for Afton, or is Gregory just really this manipulative? Because like, at that point, yeah, I feel like if you're pulling rank, you have to be present, you know? You can't pull rank over an email. That doesn't seem like it would work. I mean, like, Gregory is certainly willing to kill without a moment's hesitation, like we see in the phaser blast ending, but like, does that mean that he's done it before, or was he just desperate? He might be the one killing the therapists too. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Crying Child. Now the possibility of Gregory being a robot is high. There is a good chance that he's not just a mere mortal. However, there is also the possibility that Gregory is not only a robot, but a robot crying child, rebuilt by his father in an effort to correct his mistake, since he is the one who superpowered the jaw that killed his son. There are multiple similarities between the two characters as well, like the design choice of a two-striped shirt with shorts, as well as the constant whining from Gregory, which could be a reference to the crying child, who's crying so much that it's literally his nickname. There's also the whole crying child and Big Brother Michael dynamic that we have between Gregory and Glamrock Freddy, not to mention the best ending screen where Gregory and Vanessa are eating ice cream, and Gregory has a Fredbear popsicle literally with a bite taken out of the head. I mean, like, that's as direct as this game gets, right? Aside from when Glamrock Freddy said Vanny's name is a combination of Vanessa and Bunny. That was also very direct. Thank you for that, Scott. Penultimately, in at number 2, Bonnie. At this point, it's pretty well known and thoroughly believed that Bonnie's disappearance from the Pizzaplex is Monty's fault, considering how his last known location was at Monty's Golf. However, while we're pretty sure it's him, all the evidence is really circumstantial, and with a series like FNAF, we can never really be sure of anything, lest we get surprised by a post-it note we missed that actually references the fact that Roxy and Bonnie were dating and Roxy got jealous. Something like that is honestly not unexpected. I firmly believe that there are at least a few curveballs that we have yet to find because they weren't added in the initial release, or they're planned to be released with the DLC. But currently, the mystery of Bonnie's disappearance is set on Monty being the one who dismantled him, possibly so that Afton could be transferred into his endoskeleton, but I'm still unsure about that theory, but like I said, the next theory should be about that. And finally, in at number 1, Vanny's ending. In the canon endings of the game, the one where we fight against William Afton in the form of Burntrap, that ending, we don't see what happens to Vanny. While yes, Burntrap might have been dealt with, we don't know if that releases Vanny or if she's still under his control. Plus, we don't know what she's doing while all this goes down. When there's a canon ending, like, you kind of expect the main antagonist of the game that you've actually seen a couple times throughout the game to be there, right? So when Freddy and Gregory are sitting on that hill chilling, what comes next? And like I said, this is a question that I genuinely don't have an answer for. There are so many possibilities that it's practically impossible to guess. And I think at this point, we shouldn't even try, because whatever we guess, Scott or whoever comes next is just gonna be like, see that? Let's not do that, and let's do something completely different. We don't know what happened to Vanny. If we all guess that she's alive, she's gonna end up dead. If we all guess that she's dead, she's gonna end up alive. There's no winning here, because Scott is the ultimate internet troll, and even if he doesn't know who I am, he's still trolling me. And it's Roxanne. Roxanne, even though she is an animatronic, is extremely self-centered. She's shown repeatedly to be complimenting herself in the mirror and furiously asking Gregory if he thinks himself better than she is. She does like the classic, you think you're better than me? You think, from like, is that like New Jersey or New Yorkers? I don't know, it's one of the two. She has a very competitive nature as well, as she views finding Gregory as some form of game that she for some reason needs to win. She even seems to enjoy taunting and insulting her enemies, and notably insulting Gregory by saying he has no friends and that no one will miss him, which I don't think how that's supposed to help. However, she is shown to also have self-esteem issues, and at one point she can be seen calling herself a failure while looking in the mirror. And several of her voice lines while she's hunting you also imply that she likes bullying people for their own insecurities, because you know what, of course she does. Roxy talks to herself a lot and cares a lot about the way she looks, sobbing and wailing after Gregory destroys her face, and she also just doesn't want her friends to see this more vulnerable side of her. So when Glamrock Freddy enters her room while she is crying, she angrily yells at him to get out. And if you enter as Gregory, she just runs away. Honestly though, in real life I hate these kind of people. I hate like this archetype of a person, so to see an animatronic like that pisses me off, and I feel rightfully so. But some people like her, considering the fan art that I've seen. So yeah, good luck on this one, editors. And at 9, Gregory. Gregory is the main protagonist of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. However, just because he's a protagonist doesn't mean he's a good person. Gregory is an irritated and outspoken kid. Usually whenever he gets slightly annoyed or mad, like when he got a crappy item that he was stealing, or when he realized that he had 5 more hours to survive instead of 5 minutes. He openly also makes a comment to showcase his anger. Likewise, he will also immediately complain to anyone if he dislikes something that they're doing, such as when he told Freddy to shut up in a pretty aggressive tone. On the other hand, he is also cautious to the point that he appears to be in constant distress. In his quest to leave the Mega Pizzaplex before it closes, he prefers to hide from Vanessa instead of accepting her help, as he's pretty skeptical of her intentions in spite of her position as a security guard, and then even Freddy prompts him to trust her. Some people think that he's a good person because he's investigating the disappearances, or starts doing so after staying past 6 AM. However, I feel like he's more so doing that to allow his sadistic nature to come out to destroy more things instead of any noble purposes. Ever since people got mad at me for pointing out his various crimes in the game, I haven't liked this character, so that's why he's at like the top of this list. But I hate Roxy even more though. And at 8, Vanny. Vanny is a follower of the digital virus Glitchtrap, a form of the serial killer William Afton, and appears as the main antagonist in FNAF Security Breach. However, it is also noted by a lot of people that she wasn't really used all that well, hence her higher position. It's revealed in the Princess Quest minigames that she was also the main protagonist of FNAF Help Wanted, where she was first corrupted by Glitchtrap and like the actual ending to the game. She also plays a role in FNAF AR Special Delivery. In Help Wanted though, Vanny has some uncertainty in her voice when being confronted about her task, implying that she at first wasn't fully ready to kill people. However, by the time we get to Security Breach, she has apparently killed at least 9 kids at the Pizzaplex, as we see in a newspaper article in the bad ending. However, that could also just be 8 kids and Gregory, since one of the silhouettes really looks like him, meaning that the kids who have died are just the ones who are missing because their profiles got wiped out at the actual Mega Pizzaplex, and they're not necessarily dead, although they're most definitely dead. Vanny is shown to have a sadistic personality hidden behind a childlike flamboyance. This is shown through her just like casually skipping after Gregory as he runs from her in terror. Before she runs at him with her arms outstretched, she just kind of like lashes out at him. But her skipping after him, that also, like, that's not really that intimidating. Like, if someone saw that security tape, they figured that they were just like messing around. Just saying. In at 7, Sunny / Moondrop. The daycare attendant is the sun or moon-headed animatronic consisting of 2 different personalities that share the same vessel, ironically kinda like Vanny. Their first appearance was in this game. The character acts as sort of a mascot for 2 different candy brands. They go by the names Sunny Drop Energizing Candy and Moondrop Sleepy Time Candy, which sounds like what my mom would call her sleeping pills when I was acting up. The animatronics reside in the superstar daycare of the Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex, and Moon appears when the light levels seemingly drop. It's unknown if Moon is activated when the lights go out specifically in the daycare, or if he just activates when the area around him is dark, in addition to every hour. But it's still creepy as hell, okay? Like, as soon as the lights go out and nobody can see, this dude goes a little bit psycho and starts talking about how naughty children must be punished. As soon as the lights go out. Yeah, the creep factor, okay, is why he's higher on the list, but the fact that his minigame is so good, or why his section is so good, is why he's not at like the top. It's creepy as hell though. And at 6, Vanessa. Vanessa A is the security guard for the Mega Pizzaplex who appears in this game. In FNAF AR Special Delivery, she goes under Afton's control and is replaced by Vanny during the gameplay. And she's referred to in the actual like emails as Ness. And now she's hunting Gregory. This continues on until the end of the game, depending on which ending the player also gets, including the secret ending. Vanessa will either be shown at the end eating ice cream with Freddy and Gregory, or at the rooftop, and then she gets knocked down, and then she's dead, or she gets killed by Gregory very aggressively, and people think that was self-defense. However, if the player were to unlock the bad ending, the good ending, or the Burntrap ending, Vanessa isn't actually there. So she's not there in the canon ending, which makes this a whole other can of worms. This may be because she fled the Pizzaplex, she may be there if it collapses, we don't know. The 2 characters share very similar names, with Vanny seemingly being a contradiction of Vanessa, as well as a combination of Vanessa and Bunny, as pointed out by Glamrock Freddy, which is basically the game telling us that they're the same. Like, this is as direct as a FNAF game will get, okay? At this point, Vanessa is confirmed to be Vanny. Special Delivery scrapped emails and Security Breach's retro CDs also seem to heavily imply that Vanessa and Vanny are indeed the same person. But more so confirmed that Vanessa and Ness are one and the same. So we kind of have like a timeline for the character, which is the first timeline we've ever gotten in this series. A proper one at least. Halfway through in at number 5, Glamrock Chica. Just like the other members of the Glamrocks, Glamrock Chica is dressed in a 1970s vibe. She is a white pink chicken with an orange beak, blue eyes, pink eyelids, long eyelashes, and orange feet. The Glamrock Chica wanders around the Pizzaplex aimlessly until spotting Gregory and charging at him. Her unique mechanic is that she will sometimes check random hiding spots, but like not after you hide. So like she'll sometimes just randomly check hiding spots, unlike other animatronics will only do it if they watch you like run away. It's confusing, okay? So it's harder to hide from her that way. She can also be distracted with certain props though. To decommission Chica, the player must find a box of Monty Mystery Mix and place it inside the compactor, and then pressing the button which will cause Chica to actually enter it. You don't need to lure her into the trash compactor like I thought you did. I wasted a lot of time doing that. And then you press the button, the trash compactor crushes her, shatters her, and then you get dragged and you go underground and stuff, okay? In her shattered state though, she seemingly is able to run faster, which I guess makes sense given the reduced mass. While inside Glamrock Freddy though, she won't notice the player at all and will continue to wander aimlessly. She got nothing upstairs, okay? But she still has my heart. And at this point, I don't know if I'm joking anymore. She will chase me till the ends of the earth, and that's what I want. Dedication. In at 4, DJ Music Man. DJ Music Man is extremely similar in head shape to the original Music Man, however many of his details have been swapped out and enlarged. He now has blue eyebrows, cheeks, and a stripe on his chin, as well as a pink nose and lipstick, and eyeliner with blue bags under his eyes. His top hat now has a green stripe. The top row of his teeth are decorated to look like piano keys, like some really weird grill. That's not what they're called, right? Grills? And the inside of his mouth is glowing pink and has a changing pattern, because of course it does. He now dons a large pair of green and red headphones, because you know he's a DJ, and wears big cartoony gloves on his 6 spider limbs. Finally, this variant of Music Man is much larger than the original, obviously, being about a story tall from the bottom of his head to the top, and also stands at over 2 stories tall. While turning on the generators to restart the West Arcade, Music Man will wait outside the bathroom attempting to crush Gregory through one of the doorways while you're doing the janitor generator, you go into the closet, you pull the thing, and then you come out and Music Man's there staring at you. To escape, the player must quickly run out of the opposite door that Music Man's hand is inside. So like he'll be in like the left door, you gotta run out the right door, etc. Running out too early will actually also kill the player, so you gotta wait. Finally, when turning on the final generator, the player will have to run away from Music Man as he chases them down a room filled with various junk, which Music Man will just throw at you and put like in your way, and then you gotta dodge around it. Yeah. After that chase sequence though, for the remainder of the game, Music Man will be at his DJ booth just kind of dancing and playing music. And like this dude's one of the best characters, okay? It's great. He's freaky, but he's cool. He just does this for the rest of the game. Yeah. Getting close to the end in number 3, Glamrock Freddy. Glamrock Freddy is based off the original Freddy Fazbear with a punk-themed design reminiscent of early, like, 1980s, or like what we associate with the 1980s. I wasn't alive in the 1980s, so I don't know. But Glamrock Freddy is still initially introduced as a bookish, straightforward entertainer, unlike other animatronics in the FNAF franchise, and its previous iterations actually. But Glamrock Freddy is overall friendly, honest, and has an agreeable personality, even in the face of an adversary, as shown when dealing with Vanessa, or at least at that point he doesn't really suspect her, so it's unsure. He is shown to be very protective of Gregory and very focused on keeping him safe, going as far as allowing him to be in his stomach, albeit he is first uncomfortable with that. Because like it's not a compartment for humans to hide in. It's supposed to be for a cake. So I don't know how Gregory fits in there. But like I wouldn't want a kid to hide in my like chest either. That seems like a bad idea. He's generally nice and polite as well, and he often apologizes, which kind of makes him more like the most Canadian animatronic ever. But he's also a little oblivious, as shown during his first encounter with Vanny, although to be fair, he couldn't see Vanny without Roxanne's eyes. And when he's upgraded with the other Glamrock's parts, as seen when getting upgraded with Montgomery Gator's claws, he doesn't really like to be upgraded. It's weird. He doesn't want his friend's parts inside him. It's a weird dynamic, okay? But the relationship between Gregory and Freddy is one of the best parts of the game. It's like Eddie and Venom from the Venom movies, okay? It's mint. Penultimately, in at number 2, Montgomery Gator. Montgomery Gator is an alligator animatronic, okay? Obviously, he has sharp, pointy teeth, black claws, a red mohawk, like all gators have, green, scale, textured pants, which is a whole other can of worms, spots on his arms and his cheeks, light yellow belly and jaw, and okay, yeah. Monty has a typical, like, rock star stereotype personality, because, you know, he's constantly trashing his room, and he's rocking everything. He likes to flip his glasses down, he likes to destroy things, as you can see in his boss fight, and like the fact that he will like just break down fences all over the Pizzaplex, so much so that they actually have to put signs up to discourage him from doing that, which doesn't work. I don't know why they thought that would work. But he also seems to have some form of like dislike and hate towards Glamrock Freddy, as shown in the final level of his golf minigame that Freddy is left in a dumpster and Monty actually takes over his role as the lead animatronic entertainer, showing that he's jealous of Freddy's leadership and wants to overthrow him as kind of like a coup, which does actually happen in the van ending, so presumably also in every other ending when Freddy is taken from the Pizzaplex. So you're welcome, Monty. And finally, in at number 1, Burntrap. Burntrap is at the top of this list because while some people may consider this a waste, it was certainly a surprise. We figured that Afton would come back this time, however we never thought that he would come back like this. We figured that there would be more ceremony to his resurrection, however Burntrap was certainly not expected. At least I didn't think a new form of Afton would appear. I figured that we'd have some form of scrap trap or maybe even glitch trap this time around, but yeah. During the final fight against him, Burntrap walks between 3 different rooms and then you have to burn him again, which is like the 12th time this dude is burned, so I don't know why we have to keep doing it. Clearly it doesn't work. But yeah, if you don't end up burning him though, he will take over Glamrock Freddy and his eyes will turn purple and then he'll run at you and kill you, so you actually do have to burn him, which is annoying. In at 10, Nightmare Arm. The arm at the end of the initial security breach teaser drove the internet mad for like a week before we ultimately just said we'll wait for the next trailer. And with the like most recent, which was the last trailer before the game's release, we still had nothing about that arm. And I guess like I can understand why but it was still frustrating. So you can guess that when someone tagged me on Twitter at Centimeter Monroe and showed me a picture comparing the security breach arm to the arm of Nightmare Freddy, I'd be intrigued. So intrigued, in fact, that I actually got angry because if it's ever intended on being a Nightmare Freddy arm, I'm leaving, okay? Like, these animatronics are perfectly content being illusions, okay? Or in a child's imagination running wild while his body is trying to save his life. But like, still, what the hell? Like, how do these versions of Afton in an animatronic keep changing? They all have his body in it, so they must be intentionally the same endo, but then it keeps changing designs still. And at 9, Stitchwraith. Seeing the Stitchwraith was very unlikely, but I would have certainly enjoyed an appearance of the character, even if it was in like a nightmare sequence like I had suggested in other videos, or maybe it was like a brief passerby. I mean, like, it's not impossible, but I do think that that one wasn't likely to happen. Even in a future DLC, I don't think it would happen. But it would certainly be interesting to be looking out a window or something in the Pizzaplex, although there's not really any windows, but like, it would still be interesting to see him out of the corner of our eye. However, we did used to believe that the Afton arm was in fact the Stitchwraith, and some fans believe that Burntrap will actually turn into the game universe's version of the Stitchwraith, which wouldn't rely on Phineas tag art and would probably work better for the story of the games, but I don't know. Based on everything we've seen, I don't think that William will be losing his face anytime soon. But what do you think? Do you think that William, or I guess Burntrap, will end up being the Stitchwraith of the FNAF game universe, or do you think that we'll never see the Stitchwraith in the games? Be sure to let me know down below. And at 8, not Afton. Some thoroughly believe that this animatronic, this new version of the Spring Bonnie animatronic, to not be William, and instead possibly be Henry Emily, William's business partner and father of his first victim. Why do they think this? No idea. However, I can kind of see why, but simply it's just due to inconsistencies, since seemingly the endo for this version of Springtrap also has the same endo as the Glamrock animatronics, or the ones that we see in what is honestly the scariest part of the game. Those are the only real endos that we see. Since if this was Afton, the endo should be the first version of the endoskeleton. My explanation for this is simply because they had this model for the endo in the files and they were rushing to release something after already delaying the game multiple times, so they used it and added the Springtrap bits onto it. And since he's so destroyed, it's really difficult to determine whether it's the same design as Scraptrap, and since Henry was also in the FNAF 6 location, it could be him technically, or at least he was around the location, but I still doubt it. And at 7, Bonnie. This is an interesting theory from Reddit user u/was-that-the-bite-of-87 on the Game Theorist subreddit a month ago, which actually Matt Pat just talked about in his last Game Theory on Sunday. The post didn't get much love, but it's certainly interesting. Was that the bite of _87 asks if the Burntrap animatronic is using the disassembled Bonnie. Quote from the Reddit post. So, I have a theory that Burntrap is using the disassembled Bonnie robot. Let me explain. So you know how Burntrap has an intact animatronic foot even though no other Springtrap or Scraptrap never had them? Management might have disassembled Bonnie, and there could have been a body of Glitchtrap infected person in there, which explains the dead rotting corpse, and Afton could have taken over, but is weak, which explains why he needs a recharge station. That is all I have for now. It's kind of rough, but considering how Afton's body is still in that robot, which wouldn't be necessary if his consciousness is only in Glitchtrap or if it was transferred into this endo, I don't think that this is actually like the canon. Like I think that if Afton's body wasn't in the robot, you'd be onto something, and like Matt Pat would also be onto something because he also agrees that this should be Glamrock Bonnie's endo. But his body being in there has to be Scraptrap, but like heavily burnt. Like sure, he has another arm, but they could have just added an arm onto him. But like the main body of it would have to be Scraptrap, unless we have like a really messed up scenario going on, which is possible, but it's a kid's game, so I don't know. I mean, like, would Vanny take Afton's rotting corpse and put it in a new endo? I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I think that they just replaced the arms and the legs so that he could stand because he didn't have his actual human feet anymore. That's just what I think. And at 6, AI. It is unknown how Glitchtrap was able to leave his body for the events of FNAF VR, or how he re-enters it for the events of Security Breach. Based on everything we know about the series, it should be impossible for Glitchtrap to exist if Afton is still inside Burntrap, especially if the one you should not have killed is keeping him alive still, since that would prevent Afton from escaping from his body. And despite a line of dialogue in the trailer clearly coming from some sort of William Afton, Burntrap never speaks throughout his entire encounter, which only makes this more confusing, since if he talked, we would know that he isn't an AI, but he doesn't talk, so we can't be sure if he is or not, since not talking doesn't exactly mean that he's an AI, since people can also choose not to talk. And the AIs in this game also talk, so at this point, we have no idea if he is or isn't an AI, which is really annoying. Although, I still believe that the one you should not have killed is Gregory, not Cassidy, but you know, well, MatPat doesn't want to talk about it. He won't respond to my Twitter, okay? Or my Instagram. Or literally anything at this point. MatPat, please. Let's talk about this. Halfway through into number 5, Ultimate Custom Night. I think we all know where William Afton he deserves to go, okay? One-way trip downstairs, or as Henry said, although for one of you, the darkest pit in hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. I'm still waiting, Afton. And you know what? We thought we had gotten rid of him. We thought that William was in hell for Ultimate Custom Night, however, this proves to not be the case when the Man Room 1280 was released, showing us that instead William had only been in a coma like his son years before. However, this time winning was him waking up instead of dying, only dying when he explodes in the Fazbear warehouse and creates Glitchtrap, but apparently, this is no longer what happened. Because did William really possess a hard drive and become sentient code, or is there something more going on here? While yes, weird things in the series can be explained away with it's FNAF, or like a dream theory of something, but like, no, I'm not doing that, okay? That's the coward's way out, and I'm not a coward, for the most part. Although, I don't want to play horror games. But like, just look, if Afton is in Burntrap, he shouldn't be able to be Glitchtrap. The Ultimate Custom Night is just Burntrap being in the pod. It's what he's seeing when he's in the pod. So everything we thought we knew about Ultimate Custom Night doesn't count anymore. And that's hella annoying because, you know what? We thought we had something. We thought that we had finally figured out one thing about this series. Then you know what Scott says? Up yours! And at 4, survivors. It seems like everyone we see in the true ending to Security Breach, including Burntrap, are survivors of the FNAF 6 fire, which means that this would indeed be Scraptrap or Springtrap, but as to how he changed again, I have no idea. How do we know that this is everyone from FNAF 6 and not just William? Well, the Blob, which is a massive sized proportion of wire tentacles, because of course it is, and animatronic parts with possession of many glowing eyes. It has a whole load of them, okay? It has a mask that is identical to that of Funtime Freddy with black eyes, pinkish red glowing pupils, and like the endo face that reveals to have face plates rather than tubes, which is already a whole other can of worms that I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. The Blob's body is a large mass of wire like tentacles, and like it's basically what the sister location endos were made out of. However, it also appears to be a larger version of Molten Freddy from the Pizza Simulator Fire. Okay, but it's far bigger, and it has parts of other animatronics like Circus Baby, the Puppet, Chica for some reason, Mangle, Bonnie, and several Endo Mark IIs. And you know what? There's probably others, which again is a whole other can of worms that I don't want to touch. Getting close to the end, in number 3, wanted, dead or alive. Forget it. Because, yeah, you know what? This is actually a good question in this case, since I don't know if Afton is alive or dead inside of the Burntrap suit, okay? He was alive in the Springtrap and Scraptrap suits, as we learned from the Man in Room 1280, because he was possessed by the one you should not have killed. But did he finally get put down after FNAF 6, or is he still kicking? Okay, his body is still present within the Burntrap suit, or at least it partially is. His skull is still there. So, what's the consensus here? I don't know. The existence of Glitchtrap seems to imply that he's dead in the suit, but Ultimate Custom Night suggests that the one you should not have killed is still possessing him, which would be what he sees in the recharge station, which would mean that he's alive, and not because of the recharge station, but because the one you should not have killed would still be possessing him, which they would only do if he was still alive, since if we're being honest, the only reason that Afton was possessed was so that he could suffer, so being possessed after he's dead isn't really gonna do anything for Crying Child, because that Crying Child is definitely the one you should not have killed, not Cassidy, I'm saying it, okay? It's a thing. And the one you should not have killed would not be controlling Burntrap to take over Freddy and turn things evil. It just goes against what we know about the character. So, I don't know at this point. I feel like he's probably still alive, but like just barely. Although, that means that Glitch Trap shouldn't exist. Penultimately, in at number 2, Finally Dead. The true ending is seemingly one of the scariest parts of the game because it contains a load of things, okay? After making your way into Burntrap's area, Freddy will be taken over by Afton's newest form, and it's up to Gregory to defeat him by pressing 3 buttons outside of 3 monitors to burn Burntrap. Players will also need to avoid the animatronic enemies that come for Gregory and then use the doors to temporarily lock them out, and then other things. When Burntrap is finally burned, the Blob, which was that tentacle monster thing that I was talking about, attacks him to make sure that he doesn't get away. Freddy and Gregory will then be shown escaping and sitting on a hill together. However, if the Blob actually does kill William is a totally different question. There are death animations in the game files, however they aren't used in the ending, so we can't count it as canon. Plus, the whole I always come back thing should have ended with this game from what we understood about the series, but he came back nonetheless, so even logical conclusions aren't going to help us. And if the Blob was going to ensure William's death, it would then have to ensure its own death, so I doubt that it did it. God, just please let William finally be dead for the love of everything in life. Please. And finally, in at number 1, comes back. I think that unfortunately Afton being resurrected or returning in some form or another is inevitable. I don't get why, okay? I think at this point we can move on from this killer. We have a new one, but a load of people seem to think that we need Afton back again. I put a poll up on like the Vanny facts lists that we know during the premiere. And even though the video is about Vanny, only 51% of people thought that she was better than Glitch Trap. And I think that speaks volumes as to who the favorite in this series is. Like, I get that we've grown up with Afton as the killer, okay, but hell, we didn't even know his name until Sister Location. Until that point, we were calling him after a frickin' color, okay? We've known this man's name for like 5 games. That's literally half the series. That's half the time the series has been out. The first 4 games didn't have him, okay? He was just like, he wasn't even a character in the first game. Just a mysterious man the map pack compared to Nathan Dunlap, okay? Just end him. Finally, please! In at 10, Princess Quest. This is a theory that I truly believe and that I'm pretty sure has been all but officially confirmed. Vanessa is certainly the princess that we play as in Princess Quest, since the game was used to lock her away in the first place, both in Help Wanted as well as in the first version of the game in Security Breach, which is just a recreation of the one that we play in the Help Wanted mobile port. To further solidify this connection, there are lore bags mentioning how Princess Quest is an arcade machine that for some reason was ported to that medium from mobile, and they couldn't figure out why. So this is clearly the game that we dealt with in Help Wanted, and since we play as Vanessa in Help Wanted, it only makes sense that Vanessa is once again the princess that we're playing as, who inevitably gets caught by Glitch Trap, and then we have to fight our way back into our body, as indicated by the sword we get in chapters 2 and 3. The biggest piece of evidence here is the final door. That is in essence an exact 16-bit replica of the door that we get shut behind in the true Help Wanted ending, which again, we do as Vanessa. So it's not Cassidy. Stop saying that. In at 9, relationship. Gregory, our player character in the game, is certainly a mysterious kid, and Vanessa, the night security guard who's also Vanny, is just as confusing. But at least we know more about her story, being our player from FNAF VR. But what the most mysterious thing about this game is the relationship between Gregory and Vanessa. Like, what the heck is up with these two? Vanessa spends the whole game trying to lock Gregory in the security room, and then Vanny comes to kill us, as she does in the worst ending. But then, after curing her, we don't even ask questions, we just go eat ice cream on a hill with her. So if we're so quick to do that, then there's no way she's a stranger. It genuinely seems like their family, which would explain why he knew something was off with her, but she can't be his mother or sibling because when she locks us in the security office, she tells us that we'll wait until your parents or the police arrive. If it was a sibling, she would have said our parents or even mom and dad, but with her saying your parents, that means that they aren't hers, making our options limited. And she's definitely not our mom, since if she was, she would have said your father, which is weird because she also seemingly doesn't know Gregory's name until it starts coming out of his Service Faz Watch. Or at least that's how she says that she knows his name to Freddy in Parts and Service, but then she could have been lying. And at 8, aware. Now we may believe that Vanessa is unaware of her dual personality, that it would make sense if she blacks out while William takes over as Vanny, or however this weird pseudo-possession thing works. I don't know, it's sentient code possessing a human. All normal bets are out the window. However, that is not the case at all. As we learn from CD number 11, it doesn't matter what order you find these endgame CDs in, you just need to find 11 of them and you are able to hear this. And we get our first indication that Vanessa is truly Vanny, at least first indication from the tapes. About halfway through this tape, the therapist says that's true. So, on your breaks, it looks like you were shopping for a costume. You purchased some fake fur material. What are you going to make? Then Vanessa mutters indistinctly, you can't really make out what she says. And then the therapist replies with, what was that? Did you say the costume is a secret? Why is that? To which Vanessa replies, I can't talk about this. He said he would always be watching. He could be here or there or anywhere in between. That line of he said he would be watching surely means that she has some idea about what's going on, especially when she's openly talking about how she has plans on making a costume, or at least mutters about it. So if she's aware but doesn't fight it, does that mean that she's accepted Afton as a part of her? Possibly. And it's 7 connections. Now, whether or not she knew about this, Vanessa's recommendation for the night guard position came from the top of Fazbear Entertainment, which does end up confusing plenty of people in the administration, as we learned about from various duffel bags. She has no security experience and she was transferred from another part of the company, but nevertheless she still got the job despite multiple people saying that they wouldn't go forward with hiring her, which honestly, let's be real here, probably led to their deaths. So who on earth is the one ordering her promotions? Seemingly, we have no idea. We could assume that it's William, but he's currently plugged into a charging station in the basement, so it would have to be someone who knew her, knew Afton's interest in her, made her a VR tester so that she could get possessed, and then made her a security guard so Afton could get her to do what he needed. But who could that possibly be? When I have a solid answer, I'll be sure I'll let you know. And at 6, CRT effect. Now, while most of the mystery surrounding the CRT effect we get on our screen when Vanny is around is directed at Gregory currently, like why does he see it like that, the bigger question in my opinion is why does Vanny cause that effect? We see it happen to the security cameras as well that the therapist describes to Client 46, because she's only human. Vanny is only a person. There is no real reason for her to cause these sort of effects. Like, yes, she has some form of sentient code possessing her, somehow, but by no means should there be a reason why she is causing the cameras to screw up when she's near them, including Gregory's eyes. It explains why the animatronics can't see her, or why Freddy at least can't see her until he gets Roxy's eyes, but while the camera effect explains things, it still needs to be explained, because there is seemingly no way that it should actually be possible. Sentient code possessed or not, because either way, she's human. She bleeds when she falls down, or at least she should, but given that the game is designed for kids to be able to play it, there isn't really any blood, but still, she should only be human, right? Halfway through into number 5, Client 46. Some people believe Gregory to be the mysterious Client 46, such as myself, able to be found in the retro CDs available at the end of the game, using Roxy's eyes. However, others suggest that perhaps this Client 46 is Vanny, since Vanny is an alternate persona of Vanessa, and Vanessa is her only other client with retro CDs in the game. Client 46 doesn't talk, but is adept at hacking, something we at least before the game came out associated with Vanny. However, I have a few issues with this theory. I don't know if therapists dealing with DID, or dissociative identity disorder, would classify other personalities as separate clients, since I'm pretty sure sentient code-possessed humans wouldn't really be expected, even in the FNAF world, at least by the people in the FNAF world, so any therapist would most likely classify this as a case of DID. And I'm not sure if they classify other personalities as other clients, or if it's like the same client number but different notes. There's also the fact that Client 46 is seen talking to someone in a bunny costume, or at least the costume itself. However, the cameras are glitching out, indicating that the bunny is Vanny. And also the fact that Vanessa leaves in disc 12, or around disc 12 at least, and 46 doesn't end until disc 16. And at 4, Afton. In the best ending, there are quite a few confusing moments. The most confusing one for me at least is the idea that Gregory would go get ice cream with Vanessa once she's done trying to kill him. Like, why would you do that? Some seem to think think that it's because they're related or representing the dead Afton kids. And thanks to MapPad, there's a little more evidence to this. The ice cream that Vanessa gets while on the hill is very reminiscent of the ice cream cone that gets Elizabeth lured into baby's arm grabbing or scooping range, or however you want to say it. The cone with the tall soft serve on top kind of looks like the cone with the soft serve on top that baby presents to Elizabeth in order to lure her closer and then subsequently kill her. Is that evidence or just a coincidence? No idea whatsoever, but it's FNAF, so I'm going with it ain't a coincidence, especially because Crying Child also has ice cream that could be symbolic, so that's a little too many coincidences in my opinion. Getting close to the end, into number 3, sacrifice. There's a theory that Gregory from this game is intended to be a robotic version of Crying Child, which in all honesty makes sense. However, if this is the case, we can build off this and maybe suggest that the real intention behind this game wasn't to bring William back in any capacity, but rather to make Gregory, his son, more like him by sacrificing Vanessa. Now, for some reason, everything seems to work out for Gregory, right? Despite going about this in what is probably the worst way possible, since staying in Freddy's room again would probably have been the winner's choice, Gregory doesn't end up dying this entire time, and in one ending he even stays so that he can kill Vanny and put an end to the missing children. However, honestly speaking, this just feels all kinds of wrong to me. Like, why did Vanny disassemble Freddy, but then leave the controller on the desk instead of taking it with her when she went to chase Gregory? And why even worry about chasing him yourself when you have f***ing robots that can grab him for you? This all seems like too many coincidences, especially for a FNAF game, which could be why this ending is required for the Princess Quest ending. Symbolic reasons. He can choose to be good or choose to be evil in this moment. And Afton was fine with sacrificing Vanessa. I'm pretty sure about that. Penultimately, in number 2, 2 Vannys. The rooftop ending is unlocked by exiting the Pizzaplex through the prize counter and then clicking leave. This will prompt Freddy to burn the place to the ground, and the two of you can go escape onto the roof. I don't really know what Freddy's original plan was. I guess maybe you just go down the fire escape. But when Gregory gets to the roof, Vanny is seemingly there waiting for us, somehow. She grabs us, but then Freddy, with his new eyes, sees Vanny and jumps off the roof with her, causing them both to fall. They both seemingly die, and we take off Vanny's mask, revealing Vanessa behind it. We look confused, and then the comic ends. However, before actually ending, another couple panels are shown, with Vanessa standing up on the rooftop looking down at what happened. This is probably one of the most confusing endings in the game, since it shows us that there are apparently 2 Vanessas. And while we seemingly knew about the whole double life thing, we hadn't really exactly seen these 2 characters in the same room, so we thought that they were one and the same. And in the Princess Quest ending, we seemingly save Vanny. The simplest answer to that is that there may not be 2 Vanessas, but could simply be Vanessa's soul looking down on her body. We know that souls are actually things in this universe thanks to FNAF 3's cutscenes where Purple Guy gets spring trapped, and those souls had physical forms that caused him to freak out. So this could just be Vanessa regretting all the things that she did as Vanny, hence the fire, because Remnant supposedly needs fire to burn. And finally, in at number 1, Vanny's ending. In the canon ending to this game, the one where we fight against William Afton in the form of Burntrap, in that ending, we don't really see what happens to Vanny. While yes, Burntrap might have been dealt with, we don't know if this releases Vanny or if she's still under his control. Plus, we don't know just what she was actually doing when all this went down. When there's a canon ending to a game, you expect the main antagonist of the game to be there, right? So like, when Freddy and Gregory are just sitting on that hill, chilling in Cedar Rapids, what comes next for the series? This is a question I genuinely just don't have an answer to, and I don't think I could have one, because there are so many possibilities now that I think it's practically impossible for me to guess. And I think that's the point. Since there's someone taking over from Scott for the next game, I'm sure that Scott wanted to leave them with the ability to go wherever they wanted to next, whether that be with William as the main villain, hence his physical form, God I hope not, Vanny being the villain, hence her not being there in the end, or just the Blob, since, you know, it was introduced and then intended to be revealed in the Final Fantasy Friends book, but then delays made the whole thing inevitable. Yeah, okay, you get it, alright? That's my guess.